I am so excited and so honored today to have this guest joining us. And I would like to introduce to you to Robyn. She is a social media expert with over 13 years of experience in this industry. And she has worked with global influential brands like Michelin, Nissan, Alo Yoga, Anastasia Beverly Hills, Pepsi. The list goes on. And she is a heavy hitter in this industry. So again, I'm so honored that she is spending some time with us today. She's also a fractional VP of social media, influencer, and brand marketing. Plus, if you guys haven't checked her out on LinkedIn, make sure to do that because she has a really great personal brand and her insights are always really fresh, really entertaining. And I'm just so happy she's here today.
Hi, Emma. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I'm so excited to be here today.
You're welcome. Well, again, like I said, I'm so excited you're here, but I would really love if you could share your experience working in social media. And you've worked with really big brands, right? When you say these brands, people are generally impressed because they're heavy hitters and you're very experienced. So I'd love to know how you kind of got into social media and a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a millennial. I started my career, I graduated college in 2010, and I went straight into the agency world of advertising. And I can just remember thinking, like, this doesn't feel good. Everything seems backwards to me. And I was in a meeting with a VP of marketing and the word millennial was trending, kind of how, Gen Z had its moment. And now people are talking about Gen Alpha. I was the millennial in the room, and that gave me this like level of clout that I absolutely had, no other reason to be speaking. And they said, like, how do we reach you? And I was like, look, I'm going to be honest. I think it's crazy that you're spending $1 million on this TV commercial thinking that I'm going to see it because I don't watch TV. I stream everything. I have an ad blocker and I'm addicted to my phone. I'm absolutely addicted to social media. It's where my friends are. That's how we communicate. And if you want to reach me, that's where I am. And that afforded me the opportunity to take brands like Michelin and Nissan online. And so I did that in the agency world, brand social at the very forefront before platforms were ever even monetized. There were no influencers. There was no paid media. It was just showing up, telling stories, creating content, and in my capacity with no budget, right? And which is such a different world to even think about compared to today. And so after doing that for 5 years, I won a Webby Award on Nissan from sending a tweet to Deadmau5. He was like ranting online about Ferrari sending him a cease and desist letter because he mocked up the car and turned it into a Ferrari, which like was bright blue and had an internet nylon cat mocked up on the side of it with rainbows and like starry eyes. And they were like, you cannot do that with our car. That's absolutely crazy. Cease and desist. You have to stop. And so we mocked up a GTR and we were like, OMGTR, we've got you. And he saw it. He retweeted it. The president of Nissan ended up flying to Vegas, hand delivering him keys to a car. And then he used this car in his YouTube series for like weeks on end to come. So it was millions and millions and millions of earned impressions for Nissan. And at that moment, I kind of just had my mic drop moment where I was like, I'm doing everything here and I'm going to leave and start my own freelancing business. And my young 20-something-year-old self was quickly humbled because I learned the power of global brand recognition, right? There's a difference when you're working with a brand that is a household name like Michelin, like Nissan, versus a brand that nobody knows. And so it forced me to get really scrappy and try to find any way to get my clients' brands in people's mouths and in front of people's eyes. And so I had this idea, maybe we can find people online with large followings and pay them or incentivize them to talk about our brand. And one thing led to another. I was in the influencer marketing space, got really lucky to be connected with Ulta Beauty, worked on their entire influencer marketing program, running strategy and execution for 3 years. And then I decided, coming from the agency world, working independently, the next step for me would be to go in-house. And so leveraged those contacts that I had in beauty and found my way into the beauty world. And from there, I went to Anastasia Beverly Hills of head of social, took her Instagram to its peak at 24 million, and did a lot of really amazing things there. And then I had the opportunity to replicate that success with Alo Yoga, which when I started was just that. It was just Alo Yoga. It was this very, affluent mom yoga pant brand. And when I got there, I reported into the CEO, Danny Harris, and he told me, he's like, your objective is to make this brand cool. And so that's what we did. We opened channels Alo, Alo Men, Alo Wellness, and turned it into the behemoth lifestyle brand that it is today. And then from there, I realized, wow, okay, I'm replicating success from brand to brand to brand. Maybe there's an opportunity to scale in a way that is healthier for me and inspires more physical, personal, mental wellness on my end, because any of you who are in the audience who work in social know there's a really fine line between loving your job and being really good at it and also burning out. And so that helped me find my way to where I am now, right? Prioritizing my wellness, realizing that I was a little too plugged into the brand. And that's what I do. Like you said, I work with brands like Mattel. I'm currently working with a brand called Mind Valley, which is an ed tech platform focused around e-learning and all about self-improvement. And I come in anywhere from 6 to 18 months and help brands essentially get to a point of revenue on social.
That is incredible. I am just in awe. I think it's so nice hearing the journey that you've taken on social, because this industry, right, it changes every month. No month is the same. So you
every day.
Seen it. Yeah, no, right? Like LinkedIn changes, Instagram changes, there's new platforms like TikTok popping up all the time. So you have really seen the industry change and grow, and you've been there through the entire process. And I think that's incredible. I am curious, right? So I know a lot of people nowadays, right? We have such a huge influencer culture, and social media is really prevalent. And obviously you have regular people becoming influencers all the time. So social media is a little bit more known. But when you were really starting in your career, did you know that you wanted to be in social media? Did you know that it was marketing, or was it something that you figured out on the journey?
It was purely the journey. I unfortunately, for better or for worse, I'm one of those people who didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted my life to look like, and was kind of just going along for the ride and learning by means of, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. And I think that helped me fit into what I do like, right? Saying, I don't really think this agency model is working. That doesn't make sense for this core audience. Let's try it this way. And then the deeper I went into, let's try it this way. Let's try it the way that feels good for me is how I really found my path, right? I wish I could say it was intentional, but it's been just a lot of trial and error and leaning into like, I don't like that, so I'm going to now go this way. I don't like that, I'm going to now go this way. Yeah.
Well, I think that's interesting, because a lot of people I speak to as well on LinkedIn, almost every day are saying, I want to get into social media, I want to get into marketing, but I'm not sure where to start or what avenue I should get into. And sometimes it really is just about starting and then figuring out, like you said, oh, I really like this, or I really hate this, and I don't want to do this anymore, right? And kind of pivoting and learning as you grow, because there might be an avenue in marketing or social media that you don't even know exists, but you would be such a good fit for, right? So yeah, it really is about experimentation, and that's what social media marketers are really good at.
Knowing that you're allowed to pivot. You make one decision and it either feels good or it doesn't. So then you pivot and you make a different decision, or you stay there and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and it's really serving me right now. I don't think as a society we encourage people to like go and pivot and find like really what energizes them enough.
Yeah, no, I really agree with that. I think it's easy, especially with social media. There's a lot of pressure if you build your personal brand to be a certain type of way, or you're attracting a certain type of clients, or a certain industry, to suddenly be like, you know what, this isn't serving me anymore. I need to pivot and change. But yeah, there can be a lot of pressure from people in your life or just externally to not do something like that. But if at the end of the day, you know that this is something that you really want to do, then go for it, right? Because you never know. I want to talk to you a little bit about the difference between big brands and like global brands and personal brands, right? Because you've worked with these global brands on these strategies, head of social, but you also have a personal brand of your own. So I'd love to kind of pick your brain a little bit with the different kind of strategies that you implement for global brands versus personal brands and how they differ.
Yeah, so this is such a great question. And when I think about it, owning brand social, the name of the game is being intentional. So having a strategy, knowing what that strategy is about. And generally, it's always tied back to the brand's mission and community building. So when you're creating content, being reflective of the brand story, the why behind your brand, what differentiates you, your product, your services, the experience that you can deliver to people, and always finding a way to come back to that through entertaining, engaging, inspiring, interacting with your audience. And when you think about building a personal brand, really you should be doing the same thing. But I've found for me, and I'd be curious to hear from you because I think you've done such an amazing job building your personal brand. When it comes to my own personal brand, I'm so much less intentional. And I don't know if that is by nature of I'm running corporate brands and brand social for a living. So by the time it comes to my own personal brand, I'm kind of just flying at the seat of my pants. But ultimately, I do think they have those two things in common. There's a difference between being someone who posts online and shows up and passively engages versus somebody who has a message that they're drilling every day. And so I think in that capacity, personal brands and brand social are the same. You should be intentional. You should have your core messaging locked in and stick with that. I think with brand social, there's less opportunity to be as playful and expressive and emotional and maybe vulnerable getting into subjects. And of course, like brands can be playful. I want to be very clear. Like I think there's room, and it's amazing when brands are playful. There's just more opportunity as a human who's not tied to revenue numbers and doesn't have a board to answer to and can take risks almost, choosing sides of the internet in terms of audiences and how they show up and who they really aim to serve.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned too about you're working, if you're in this industry, your social media, your marketing, you're constantly doing this for a brand, right? And you're focused on that ROI, and it can be really draining. And then when you pivot and you're like, oh, I really should have my own personal brand. Yeah, you can kind of come to your personal brand and think, I don't have any energy left to give to it. And I think I know that's something that a lot of people struggle with in this industry where, yeah, you're kind of burning the candle at both ends and you're trying to do everything. And it can be really challenging. But I'm glad that you mentioned, consistency and being intentional, because I 100% agree with you. I think when you've got any kind of social media content going out, you do want to be intentional with it. When I think of my own personal brand, just to touch on that really quickly, it definitely was something, like you said, that I could be more playful with, because I've worked with clients, I've worked in-house as well. And you're right, you have to be more specific and it's a little stricter. You can still have a lot of fun, like Duolingo and Wendy's and Ryanair. I think of all those brands and they have a lot of fun on their brand accounts, but it can be a little bit more challenging to get that okay to go ahead with that. So yeah, my personal brand, I am intentional with it, but it is something that I just like to have fun with. I post a lot of memes and it's community for me. So again, it's being intentional with the community aspect of it. Curious, Robyn, if there is someone watching who maybe wants to start their own brand, or they're working with a brand, perhaps like a startup or a smaller company, or they're just getting onto social, what is something that a brand should be doing when they first launch their social channels? What is something they should be paying attention to?
So you just said it, community. When you get started, whether it's your personal brand or with a brand social account, it's painful, right? You're showing up every day. You're putting in hours to strategize and produce content and make sure that it's perfect before you release it into the world. And I think we've all been there where it's like you've got one person, you've put hours into it. Do not get discouraged. Be so grateful for those 10 people, right? Honor those 10 people and foster that community. And know, like, it's not going to be this way forever, but you need to put those 10 people at the heart of what you're doing and create for them. I think that so many brands get lost in growth that they forget their communities. And then when it comes time to announce something big, cool, you have like a large following, but no one's actually invested because you haven't been focused on what you're creating. And so I think you really need to hone in on your community. You need to engage with them. You need to make them feel special. You need to ask them, hey, what questions do you have for us? How can we be of service to you? Have you tried our new product? This is what we think is different about it. Do you have thoughts? Anything, whether it's an experience, a product, a service, really finding a way to answer their questions. Look at the comment section. What are people saying? Maybe people aren't saying anything. That's fine. Go engage with them. Tell them that you love what they're doing. Build, nurture, and farm your community, right? That is, of course, the most important thing. You can have content, you can be creating, you can be leveraging influencer, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a community that rides for you, you really don't have anything.
I'm over here just nodding my head along with what you're saying because it's so true. And I think when you're working in this kind of industry, there's so many numbers involved, right? Like your follower count, your engagement, your analytics. And it really is so easy to get caught up in that. But you're right. At the end of the day, like your community really is what is going to push your brand forward, your personal brand or your, global brand, corporate brand. And if we refocus and say, oh yeah, those 5 people that liked my post are real 5 people on the other side of the screen. And it kind of puts everything back into perspective, right? When you realize, oh, I'm actually touching people's lives with social content, which sounds kind of sappy, but I do think that it is something that we need to be more aware of. So I love it. Community over everything, and create content for the community, not for the algorithm, right? Because if you build a community, people will come. I'm curious, Robyn, if you have a favorite social media campaign that you've worked on, and what made it your favorite and why was it successful?
So I have had the pleasure of working on a lot of really cool shoots with amazing people and celebrities and models. But to me, my favorite campaign I've ever done is like, back in the day, it was 2015, Ulta Beauty was launching their in-store salons. And we were just trying to drive traffic to the salons via social. And this was like in a time when we would contract influencers to create YouTube videos. We'd send them product. They would send us the videos. We would review it. Maybe we would have edits. If it was like a great creator, it would just go live as is. But was a lot of hand-holding with creator marketing. And to launch these campaigns, we actually had to physically send girls in store. And to eliminate the turnaround time of sending them in store, having them film and edit and stitch and get content live, we decided to allow them to go in stores and Instagram story the whole event and post in real time live. And I just remember thinking that this was one of the most revolutionary things I had ever done. I was so grateful that I was able to get my client to sign off on it. And we genuinely, like, it's so funny now to think about it because it's like that is now human behavior on social, posting what you're doing in real time. But at the time, that was genuinely revolutionary. Like, we were revolutionizing the industry, sending girls in store on Instagram stories, posting 10 slides of their experience all at once, and like including I don't even think there was a link. It was like a link in bio was what where we were at. I don't think there were tap tags or swipe ups yet on Instagram at that point. But it was honestly just like so amazing to feel like, wow, we're changing the way that people are showing up and behaving and consuming online. And it was obviously wildly successful. And so that's one that stands out in my mind.
I mean, that's pretty cool. That's really awesome because I think, again, like you said, right, Instagram didn't even have like the swipe up, but you were at the forefront of bringing these ideas that now, like you said, are common. Everyone's doing it, right? But you were in the beginning saying, hey, I think we should do this. And it was such a success.
Now, the social landscape has changed so much. And now it's like, I don't even know what the next big thing is. And I'm not putting the pressure on myself to figure it out, but I'm inspired and I'm loving watching all of it, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it really is fascinating to be in this industry and see all of these things happen all the time, quickly shift and change. I do have a question though. So when we're thinking about making our brands stand out or our personal brands, right? There's so much competition. There's so many brands doing really exciting, fantastic things online. So how do we make our voice stand out? And do you have any tips for maybe finding your unique voice online?
Yeah, I think that is a great question. I think it's less about standing out. And again, it comes back to community for me. That's really what it is. Like there's so much clutter. You shouldn't aim to compete or over shout somebody else. I think it's really standing out by owning your relationships and serving those people. That's my recommendation.
When you're trying to really find your voice, it is really easy. Obviously, you should do competitor research and you should look at what is working for other brands. But at the same time, you do have to think about, well, what is it my community is looking for from me or from the brand? And then how can I translate that? Because I've seen a lot of brands as well take a trend that isn't even in their industry and then bring it into their industry and make it for their community. And it really works. It stands out because you've seen that the trend works, but you need to translate it into what you're doing and in your niche.
Totally. And I've also seen so many brands hop on trends that do nothing. It doesn't do anything. They don't get, mass engagement. It's not creating revenue. So there's really that fine line between being strategic with how you show up and hopping on trends and hoping to gain exposure that way. And I think it all comes down to, like you said, what makes sense for your personal brand, what makes sense for your business, and what's in direct alignment, as opposed to just trying to be the loudest in the room or trying to hijack attention in a way that's not really authentic.
Yeah. And I think too, if people are just copying each other and we're all just copying each other on the internet, that is so boring. Like in my personal opinion, right? I don't want to come online and see every brand doing the exact same thing. So it is nice to be able to like have a brand you love and see that there is some unique creativity going on there. Obviously, there's a ton of social media platforms and there's a lot of pressure to feel like you have to be on every single one of them. How do brands, whether you're, a global brand or a personal brand, pick the right platform for your business?
That's a great question. And I think it comes down to a few different things. Number one, what's your objective as a brand? Number two, where is your audience? And then number three, what do your internal resources look like, right? So some brands are going to be wanting to own the attention and take people's time through long form content. And so maybe YouTube is the best place for them. Maybe there are brands who have a really robust content arm and they're able to just churn out videos. Maybe then Instagram or even TikTok is the right place for you. For me, I think that Instagram is still one of the best platforms for brands. I just think by nature, the app has been designed for brands. So I think that's the best place to play as a brand. And I think that platforms now have changed so much that you can use your Instagram content on TikTok. You can use that content on YouTube shorts. And so there's an opportunity to kind of syndicate out content. But if you're looking to build a community, I would ask, okay, what type of community and what is that rooted around? And if you're looking to just gain awareness, like maybe TikTok is the place to go. And maybe you do it activating influencers. So yeah, it really depends on those three things: your audience, your capabilities, and your objective.
I find it interesting that you bring up Instagram, because I think there's a lot of discourse online, people saying, oh, Instagram, it's fading away. We don't like Instagram anymore. But it's so prevalent still. Like, you definitely should be on Instagram. Don't be afraid of it.
Right.
And like you said, it was designed for brands. It's a really great platform to have all this different kind of content go out. Okay, so I am going to ask you one more question, and then I will have our audience ask some questions if there are any, and we can go through and move into the Q&A section. So
Amazing.
Robyn, I would love to hear what you think the future of social media will look like. And I know it's hard to predict. We can't predict like in stone what it's going to look like, but do you have any ideas of what we could possibly see in the future?
That's a great question. And I'll be honest, like I said, I don't think I could have ever predicted where we are now when I started, taking brands like Michelin and Nissan online. I'm like still amazed every single day. But I think right now, social media is kind of hitting a tipping point where platforms and people and brands are really wisening up to the dark side of social media. So like fake followers and shady behaviors. And I think I'm hoping, manifesting for us, that platforms start doing something to kind of eliminating those kind of sneaky behaviors and cleaning it up for us. That's my hope. That's my hope for the future. But in terms of like really where we're going, I honestly just see more content. I see more platforms, and I see more people becoming influencers, like everyday people just being influencers. And I think smart brands will find a way to roll out those affiliate programs to the average person, as opposed to like having it be a brand deal creator partnership type of thing. Because at the end of the day, like social consumption is only getting larger. And so when I think about the industry realistically, I think that's where it's going.
Right. Have the everyday person represent brands that they love, but also, yes, to having brands and platforms figure out the sneaky behavior that goes into, like buying followers or buying engagement. So yeah, that's a problem. It's a big problem. So yes, I would very much be on board for that. We got quite a few questions come in. So we can just read them top to bottom, because we've got about, 10 minutes or so. So
okay.
The first one is, what is your advice on landing job opportunities to work with these big brands?
Just go for it. Apply, try and find someone who works there. Find your way in, show them why you're the best. If you can, capture their attention in any way, that's what I would recommend. But I understand the job market right now is in a different place, and it's more intense and competitive than it ever has been before. So I would say if there's any way that you can differentiate your skill set and really highlight what you can bring, whether that's like proactively doing a strategy or giving feedback on a specific campaign, anything that's going to be like attention grabbing in that way, as opposed to just being another piece of paper that the brand gets hundreds of.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I would even push it for like promotion for personal brands, honestly. I think this is a really great way to connect with people in the marketing and social media industry, but also the people who make hiring decisions. If you can get the attention of, like the CMO or something because of a post you did, that's a great door opener to say, oh, hey, are you hiring? Right. So you never
Absolutely.
know where your
Super
personal
smart.
brand. Yeah. Okay, so next question is, I want to start building my personal brand, but I don't have a lot of time to commit to it right now. Should I wait until I have more time or start now and only post 2 to 3 times a week?
Start now. Start now. Don't put it off. You're never going to be ready. So don't wait to be ready. I think start now, get into the habit of it. And once you really figure out how to templatize your approach and systemize your creativity, you'll get into a place where it's just on autopilot. And I think that's probably, I don't want to speak for you, Emma, but like where we're at right now. Like I remember when I first started posting on LinkedIn, it would take me forever to come up with a post. And now I'll just have a day where I'm feeling inspired, or if I'm not feeling inspired, but I have an idea, I'll write down my idea. And then once I'm out of content that's been scheduled, I know, okay, I need to sit down and write. And I'll either bang out, 3 posts, 10 posts, whatever. I just have this now bank of content that have ideas and context. And so I get myself into a state where I can just kind of slot my calendar for a period of time and until the next time. So get started ASAP.
Yeah, I will echo that. Definitely get started right away. Even if you can't post 5 days a week, that's totally fine, right? Be consistent. So if you can only post twice a week, post twice a week, but do it consistently.
Yeah,
and yeah, like you said, Robyn, once you do it long enough, you kind of figure out what your community is looking for, what kind of topics they like, and it makes it easier for you to create content. You don't have to think up these new ideas all the time because that's exhausting and nobody has that much creativity all the time. So yeah, you got to figure out what people are looking for and then template it so that you can be consistent. Okay. Another question is, what is your dream brand to work with?
Such a good and hard question. Maybe, I don't know. Emma, do you have one? Mine is rooted in like a brand that is truly changing the world for the better. And I just don't know who that is yet. Is it Google? Is it Headspace? Is it Calm? Like, who is changing the world in a way that's meaningful? That is my ideal target client. I need to think about who they are.
Yeah, that's fair. I think for me, the first brand that really comes to mind is Rare Beauty, like Selena Gomez's makeup brand. I love her makeup, but I also really respect the CMO, Katie Welch, I believe her name is. I just think they're doing a lot of great work for mental health, and they're really trying to prioritize like having funding go into different charity projects and stuff. And similar to you, Robyn, I want to work for a brand that is doing something meaningful and also fun to work for as well. I think Rare Beauty would be a pretty cool one. So that would be mine.
That sounds like the perfect mix of like fun and fulfilling.
100%. Yeah, the best. Okay. So we have another question here. So Instagram is such a key platform for brands and community building. It looks like TikTok is going to go a similar route as Meta by creating a series of connected platforms. Do you guys think that the introduction of TikTok Notes might be able to compete? Oh, I'm glad you brought up TikTok Notes.
So if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you don't bet against TikTok. Like as a token millennial, I was just like, no one is ever going to do it better than Instagram. Like no one cares about TikTok. And now I spend as an individual personal consumer all of my time on TikTok. Like I'm just obsessed with it. I don't think Lemonade took off. I don't want to bet against TikTok, but I also think, how many times can you catch lightning in a bottle? Like TikTok was lightning in a bottle. I don't know that their new app is going to be as good as TikTok's native platform. And I don't think that Threads is particularly thrilling either. I don't think that Instagram was able to catch lightning twice. So I don't know. I think it's honestly just noise, but I don't want to go on the record betting against them because I do think they have something special. So I'm curious to see what you think.
Yeah, it makes me think of Threads, honestly, and Instagram. There was a lot of hype when Threads came out and people were really excited. I think, X or Twitter was in kind of a bad place. So it did add a little bit more hype where people could go to a platform like that who enjoyed like short form tweets. But at the same time, I mean, I know there are people who love Threads, but it's still not as popular as Instagram.
Right.
Definitely, like you said, didn't catch lightning in a bottle with that. So yeah, TikTok Notes, I think will be interesting to see how that transitions, because I know they do have a lot of, they are pushing content on the platform right now with the photo carousels. So they do already have photos on TikTok. So I don't know if people will want to necessarily have another app on top of, TikTok and Threads and Instagram and Snapchat and, all of these ones. So again, like you said, I don't want to bet against it. TikTok, it seems to survive. So we'll see if they pull it off. But yeah, I think there'll be hype, but I don't know if it will stick around. Next question. How do you convince a brand to focus on engagement instead of follower count and posting just to post? Really good question.
So I think you just show metrics, right? We all know as marketers that the most fun part about data is using it to tell whatever story you want to tell. So what's the story that you're trying to tell? And then support with numbers. So you're saying focusing on engagement instead of follower count, and posting just a post. I would say, okay, the story here is we're being unthoughtful. It's not strategic the way that we're posting. And we can see that because of that, engagement is suffering. We are not growing in followers. However, before we took this approach, we were being more intentional. We scaled back on number of posts, but that gave us larger engagement. And as you can see, this is how our follower rate grew in comparison to that. So really taking the time to tell the story and drill home your point with numbers supporting it is what I would say.
Yeah, I would echo that as well, because I think when you obviously are working for a brand, right, they're going to be focused on the ROI and they're going to be focused on, is the social bringing in sales. But if you're posting just to post or you're only focusing on the numbers of people, right, the number of followers really doesn't matter at the end of the day if all of those people don't care about your brand or don't care about your business or don't want to engage with your content, right? So when you focus on the engagement and when you focus on the community, you're saying, look, it might take a little bit longer, but in order to see those kind of follower, like the growth, right? But at the same time, when you get there, you're going to have this massive community of people who actually care, who will buy what you're selling or, want to support you in what you're doing. So yeah, I think showcase the numbers and really put it in the perspective that like this will be beneficial for the business, but we have to do it the right way in order to get the results that we're looking for. There's no shortcuts in social media, even if people try. So
they don't exist.
They don't exist. And when people promise you like 50,000 followers overnight, like scam, don't listen. Don't listen. Okay. So we've got time for one more question. How do you balance personal branding and professional growth goals while still supporting company evangelism on your personal LinkedIn?
So I think it comes down to content strategy, right? Let's just make up an example. Person A, let's say person A is a social media marketer that works for a social media marketing platform. And it's a part of their job to boost sales or something for the company. I'm trying to think of like an example that works with your question. This person is a person, so their content strategy should have content buckets, and those buckets should be personal, whether that is what they believe in, spirituality, health and fitness, travel, mental health, whatever. That's one bucket. Then there's them as a person who has a career, sharing those learnings. And then maybe there's like posting about your company and the platform and how they achieved, X results from using the platform. And here are all of the different tips for having the platform. Or maybe there's even less of a salesy approach talking about job love. I would say balancing out the content in a way that's balanced across, like, one of every 5 posts talks about my company, whereas, every two of 5 posts talks about me and my personal journey or my career achievements that's not actually tied to revenue for the company. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think I would add on to that as well that your personal brand, right? Like when you're on LinkedIn, obviously it's a professional platform. So your employer is most likely on there and your colleagues are on there, but your employer does not own your personal brand, right? Like that is your own social media. And obviously you have to be careful with how you're presenting yourself on it because you're representing the company in a way if you're employed by them. But at the same time, like you said, Robyn, I think you can still promote your company that you're working for, but doing it in a way that maybe you're talking about the success that you've had in the month at that company, right? So you're still building your personal brand, you're still showcasing your expertise, but you're still also bringing up the company at the same time, but in a way that's beneficial for you and doesn't sound like, yeah, you're just a salesperson for the brand that you work for, because you definitely don't have to be. Yeah, that would be my 2 cents there. So I am going to wrap it up now. But Robyn, I just want to give you a thank you, first of all, for coming and sharing all of this information and your experience and your expertise with us. It has been so incredible to hear your journey and also to learn from you as well. I'm sure everyone here has really enjoyed that. So thank you so much. If you want to, this is the opportunity to kind of plug where people can find you, or anything you want to leave with last closing remarks.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I've had such a great time chatting with you. I hope everyone found it valuable. And definitely give me a follow on LinkedIn. That is where I'm most active. And I have some exciting things in the pipeline that I'm going to be announcing soon. So I would love for everyone here to be a part of that.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. It has been incredible. This wraps up our season 2 of MMI. So thank you if you were an OG fan and you were with us all the way through. But yeah, Robyn, thank you so much. And I wish you all a wonderful day. So thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.